Welcome to the O Show, your number one podcast for everything training, mindset, and nutrition. I am your host, Oren McCarry, and it is my goal to help you access the best information around to allow you to kick ass in the gym, in the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. Between my own experiences and those of my amazing guests, I'm confident we will do that. So let's strap in and level up your life starting right now. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys. Welcome to today's episode of the O Show. I am your host, as always, Oren McCarry, and today I have on IFBB Pro from Perth, our lovely city here, and a fellow coach. We have Nicole Tan on the line today. How are you, Nicole?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
This is going to be super fun. So this came about because Troy obviously was on last week on the podcast and it blew up, and he talked very highly of you, and then I just randomly clicked in your profile and realized I didn't follow you. So I was like, oh. So we followed each other, we got talking, and you were like, I was like, oh, let's get you on the podcast. You're like, cool, can you do Friday? I was like, whoa, this girl is an action taker. She's like ready to get on this podcast. So it's happened really quickly, and it's super good to see. So I'm excited for this for me. It'll be very good.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. I love going on people's podcasts.
Yeah, so I think if we just talk a bit about your journey, you've obviously came from the amateur ranks in the bikini division to now pro, and now you're going to look at prepping for your first pro show in the next sort of year. I think Troy didn't drop any dates or anything or give any real clues, but you can hold that back if you want, but I don't know where we're at with prep. So we'll just talk about that and just literally have some fun here.
Yeah, so I actually started my competing journey in 2015. So my first show was actually the INBA, which is now it's ICN, but back in the day it was called the INBA. So I was doing the INBA back then, and then I even did a NABO show as well. So those two were my first competitions. I didn't do very well. So my first ICN show, I came fifth, which is, I guess, okay, but still a little bit of a disappointment for myself. And then when I went to the NABO show, I think 2 weeks later, I didn't place in that. So my first season of competing wasn't the best. And I was competing with Jeremy, and I think Jeremy did pretty well. So it was a little bit hard. Yeah, and then I kind of realized where I went wrong was because all the people that I looked up to were IFBB people, and my coach at the time was also an IFBB pro. So in my head, I had this image of what I wanted to look like. And so even in my first two shows, I came in really conditioned. At NABA, they actually told me I was too conditioned, but I also didn't have much muscle at the time. So I kind of just was conditioned and skinny.
Yep.
Yeah, and they preferred kind of I guess more fuller, curvier girls. And that was just not what my body naturally was like. I was kind of boxy, didn't have much shape or anything. I was just kind of lean and skinny, and I was 38 kilos on stage. So
okay, yeah.
And then I decided to take the plunge into IFBB, but I was still very intimidated by the IFBB, and I think a lot of people are as well. They know that they definitely want to be there and they want to do it, but there is a part of them that's still really, really scared, I guess. So I did my first IFBB show locally. I think at the time it was still ran by Mike O'Mara, so the O'Mara Classic. Yeah. I did that. I didn't place at the States, and then I went to my first Arnold's, which was the second Arnold's ever. So that was when the Arnold's was really new. It was super exciting. And then I did the novice category, and I came fourth in that show. So that was the first time I placed in an IFBB show, and it was at an Arnold. So it was super exciting. I was super happy. And I think at that point, that was the peak of my competing kind of career. I'm oh, I can't get any better than this. But, little did I know
Yeah.
things would change. So after that, I just kept competing. I think I did maybe 2 more shows in Perth. And then I started to get better, but I was placing second. So I think I came second 3 times. So I kept getting really close to winning, and then didn't. And then I took a little bit of a break and did powerlifting actually, because I was still on the small side. I remember the second Arnold's that I did, that was when, do you know Asha Courtard?
Yep.
Yeah, so Asha won the short class where I was at. And then I think that was the year Melissa Carver turned pro at that show. And then I also had Julia in my lineup as well. So all of them were really muscular, and I was still really, really skinny. So I was I need to do something to really put on size much quicker. So I thought maybe I'll go into powerlifting just to do something a bit different. So I did that for a little bit. And then that's when the split happened with the IFBB.
Oh, yeah.
So that really opened a lot of doors for traveling to compete as well. So the hard thing about doing, especially the Arnold's here, is it always like is in March, and that means you have to prep over Christmas and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a really hard time. But I picked a few shows that was in August, and I think August is a really great time to compete because it's like kind of just during our winter. So there's not much going on. It's just like a good time to prep. Yeah. So prep over winter, and then I actually did my first IFBB Pro League show in Singapore.
Okay.
And that's the country that I was born in, actually. So that was really special for me. So I thought it would be super cool if I won my pro card at like the country I came from, but obviously it didn't happen. But I did win my class, so that was the first time I ever like won. So it was cool that my first win was in Singapore, and then I went into the overalls and fought for my pro card for the first time.
Nice.
And then I think that was the first time where I kind of was, I guess I really wanted it then, you know, especially after coming so close. Then, you know, normally sometimes you feel like you want something, but you're not sure how far away it is until you get really, really close. It just makes you want it even more. Yeah. So the fire, the passion just kind of built from there. 2 weeks later, I went to Vietnam, and that was a muscle contest show. So I've been watching like muscle contest shows like in the US for a long time. So that was really, really cool that they did that. And it was just really cool that like, you know, we could just fly and do these shows, especially like after the split. So that was really cool. Like I love traveling. So competing in Vietnam was like a whole experience itself. And then I won my class there again, which is great. And then I went up for overalls again, and then I didn't get it again. Oh. Yeah, so again, that made me want it like even more. And then I came back. I was not sure if I was going to maybe fly to Macau in November, but I think I just needed a little bit of time off. So took some time off, and then I kind of decided pretty last minute that I was gonna do the next Arnold. So I think I came back to Perth, and I was at the local show, and I think I was talking to a few people. I was actually talking to Josh, and I think Paul Boo and a bunch of other like pros there. I think because I was giving out trophies, or I don't know, I think it was with something else. So I think I just had to hold people's hands on.
Yeah. Okay.
So so I got to talk to Josh, and I was at the side. I was like, I really want to do your show, but I don't know whether there's enough time for me to start prep now for season 8, because season B to season A is pretty close, like the time frame between the two IFBB shows. And literally everyone I talked to that day was like, no, you should do it. You can just like start now. Like you definitely have enough time. You should do it. So I decided to do it, and then I won overalls here in Perth, and that was when I was on 100%. I was like, I'm coming to Arnold's to win my pro card. I really want it. So it was all or nothing. I had 4 weeks after the Perth show, did everything I could, went to the Arnold's, and then I won my pro card. So
nice.
Yeah, that was amazing. And then I decided to take a year off after that to grow more. I still always felt really, really small. So even after turning pro and like winning quite a few competitions, I still felt like I was just not big enough still. So I still need to put on more size. So I decided to take some time off. I kind of regret that now, because if I did compete that year, then I would have at least got a few shows, a few opportunities to compete, because the next show I decided to prep for was obviously like the Arnold's in 2020. And 1 week out, that was it. Never got to debut, and then tried again for the season B bikini pro show, and then again that was postponed, so that didn't happen. So I had a whole year of trying to compete and not quite being able to. So this year, hopefully, depending on the borders, I'll get to go to New Zealand.
Oh, nice.
And then there'll be the Fit Fest here, but they haven't announced if there will be a pro show. Well, there will be a pro show, but I don't know if there will be a bikini pro show. Okay, yeah. So I'm just assuming that it's going to happen. Okay. So me and Troy just kind of prepping for that and like crossing our fingers and just kind of see how it goes. But otherwise, there will be New Zealand. So the New Zealand show will happen. It's just a matter of whether I can get myself there. So it's up to Mark McGowan, I guess.
Yeah, fair enough. So that must present a challenge in itself though, right? Like to have dates in the calendar, so like I'm guessing early next year or whatever, and you don't really know if it's going to happen, right? But you're still going all in on this goal of your first pro show. How is that like mindset wise? Like, is it hard to stay on track there, or are you quite locked in with it?
I think now I am. Last year when we were going for the season B show, that didn't happen. I was kind of half and half because I kind of was still scarred by Arnold's being cancelled and me being like 1 week out. That a part of me, and then there was like lockdowns happening, and it was still really crazy during that time, and Perth borders was still closed. So even though I started prep for that show, I was still not 100% in it. I think like mentally, I just felt like it just didn't feel right. I just felt like it wasn't going to happen, or there was just something in me that I still had a bit of fear.
Yep.
And that's why I sat out the March pro show, because I still had that like kind of feeling that something might go wrong. And I guess it kind of did, because the Perth show got cancelled. So but luckily I think the borders did reopen in time, so if I did choose to compete for that show, I would have still made it there. But I think it would have just been very tough for me mentally, because the borders kept opening and shutting. So I think I'm glad that I chose not to do that, just because I knew mentally it was just, I wouldn't be able to kind of handle it. But this time, I think after sitting this one out and things are getting a little bit better now, I feel kind of like in my heart that it's going to happen. So I think it's easier for me to just go all in on it this time. Even Troy was saying the other day, like, oh, I think that borders did temporarily close to New Zealand. So he was like, oh, what are we going to do? I'm like, I'm still aiming for New Zealand. Like in my head, New Zealand is happening. Like I'm just going to go till the very end, because now the borders open and shut like for a few days at a time, and you just never know. Yeah. So I'm just hoping that it'll be open at the right time and I'll be able to fly right in, and and that will go smoothly. So I think it'll get harder as I get closer, but I'm trying to stay like really focused and just really positive. And I think, I'm feeling positive about it for now. So.
Nice. So speaking about Troy, he's going to laugh when he listens to this. We had a bit of a laugh back and forth in DMs about how he had that little rant about the judging at the latest pro show on my podcast. But one thing he said throughout that was like, he was talking about his roster of girls, and he said, if you throw Nicole Tan into that lineup, she's top 3 immediately. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, yep, she comes in peeled, she's got good shape. So he's obviously planning for you to come for whatever pro show and fucking nail it, obviously. But seeing that, and like him saying that you would have been top 3 in his opinion, does that make the remorse of not doing that show a little bit more, or are you kind of thinking that it was still worth it because of the struggle that it would have been mentally with the borders back and forth?
It's a tough one. I go back and forth with that as well, because after the show, he did tell me, he didn't say exactly top 3, but he was like, oh, if you did the show, you would have done pretty well.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I'm pretty sure he said top 3 on our podcast.
Yeah, no, he did say top 3 on the podcast, which was very nice to hear, because I know he has a lot of very good girls as well.
Yep.
So sometimes I'm like, I don't know, maybe does he say this to everyone? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was very gave me a lot of motivation and like confidence to kind of like keep going, obviously, because especially seeing everyone in competition condition, and then you look at yourself in like a normal condition, you're like, I don't look like them, they look great. So yeah, you have to kind of picture your end product, which unfortunately, like, we still never got a chance to kind of get to. I'm still yet to see what his peaking protocols are, because for the Arnolds, like, we kind of stopped like just before peak week, so I never got to really see like how I could really look, or what he could really kind of bring me in looking like. And I saw how he brought all his other girls in, and they obviously look really, really good. So it's still hard to like picture and stuff like that. But yeah, part of me still like kind of really regrets not doing that show. But at the same time, like, I didn't take my foot off the pedal. So I just took it as time to keep growing, because at the end of the day, if all went well and I were to win that show and go straight to Olympia, I need to make sure that I'm worthy of that. So this time, taking that time off, is to make sure that, you know, if I do win, that I'd be ready and I'd be confident in myself to be able to step on that Olympia stage and not feel like, oh, I'm still too small and whatnot. So I guess if you look at the big picture, at the end of the day, it was still good for me to take some time off and try to grow a little bit more.
Yeah, 100%. Now, one thing you said earlier, Nicole, was that at the start you kind of rushed into the IMBS/ICN shows and your physique wasn't really there. You said you were a little bit boxy in the shape. Now, a lot of the times people rush into competing because it's a cool thing to do, right? They'll see people, pros like you, and they'll be like, oh, Nicole looks amazing. I want to look like that. I want to like see the glam of comp day. Would you have done anything differently with those first shows now, knowing like how you looked, and would you maybe have held off with that? Or what sort of advice would you give people with planning their first show?
I think for me personally, I wouldn't change anything. If I didn't see how I looked like at 38 kilos, I would have had a misconception as to how much muscle I did have. And I think a lot of, especially males, not so much females, but males fall into this category where they think they have a lot of muscle. Everyone thinks they have a lot of muscle until they truly, truly get lean. And then they realize, actually, I don't.
Yeah.
You know, and then they're like, all right, I have to put in more work and whatnot and things like that. So it was a good kind of wake up call for me to see how much I was lagging. And then that just made me want to push harder and work harder and not be afraid of eating. I think a lot of girls are so scared of like eating higher calories and things like that. But when you see the scales drop to 38 kilos, you're like, oh man, I got to eat after this.
Yeah.
Like I got to make sure next time it's not even about what I place, but I never want to see this number again. You know, so that was like a big motivation for me to make sure that I ate my food and train hard as well. And I think food is a big part. Like a lot of people are very, very scared to put on weight post show, but when you know you have to put on size, I think it makes it easier for you to stomach the food.
Yeah, 100%. It just presents a different challenge, right? It's like you got the challenge of diet, and then it's a challenge in the off season is not so much about the physique there and then. It's about, you know, strength gains and like the energy to overload your lifts and just smash everything, and then, you know, bring that additional couple of kilos whenever you actually do diet back down again. And it's just a different challenge that people seem to struggle with, is turning off that I've got to look my best sort of mode, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is why I tell my clients, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you look like in the off season, doesn't even matter how you look like 2-3 weeks out. It only matters what you look like on show day itself. 100%. So, you know, you got to do whatever it takes, even if it means that you won't feel comfortable in your off season body. But if that will help you look your best, like where it counts, which is show day, then like, no, that's what you got to do.
Yeah, 100%. And talking about that, in your words, boxy physique that you had back then. So what's been the biggest shift to allow you to have this obviously pro-worthy physique now? Like what's been the biggest shift in your mindset, training, nutrition, whatever it is, to help you get there?
I think it's a lot of mainly training. So building, especially like my upper body, so getting more shape through actually building muscle. So getting like my shoulders rounder, my lats, especially like bigger lats. And then obviously with the lower body, having like more glutes and legs and stuff like that to create that illusion. And then obviously, I guess I'm blessed with having like a okay waist, and my waist is quite small, I guess. So when I do get lean, that will help kind of create that hourglass look. But I think like posing is like really, really important as well. Learning to pose to exaggerate like that kind of look. And I think that's why I did better when we swapped over from like the old IFBB to Pro League, because the posing is so different. So I think with the old IFBB, we have to stand like front on, just in that very weird kind of like very, very front on front pose, which I don't look very nice in, because again, like I'm just kind of like boxy. So I need to kind of pose like the NPC way, like the way they pose in America. And then that just gave me like a lot more shape as well. So I think it was a good decision on my half, obviously, to go the Pro League route rather than the IFBB Elite route, because that complemented my physique much better as well.
Yeah. Perfect. And then in terms of the powerlifting stuff you done, you mentioned that you thought you'd go away from bodybuilding style, try to build some size. How did that go, for example, versus now you're still doing bodybuilding style training, but you're trying to stack on size in an off season? What can you compare the two so people know the difference between powerlifting and bodybuilding?
Yeah, this is something Troy feels very passionately about. So he really, really hated the fact that like I used to train like that. Not because of me in particular, but I think because he always talks about how, you know, you shouldn't do those lifts, it'll make your waist thicker, and like, you know, bikini girls don't need to be deadlifting that much and stuff like that. And then people would like take my photo and take a video of me like squatting a lot of weight and like send it to him and be like, but what about her?
Right,
And then
okay.
he'd be like, you would be that one outlier that really contradicts everything I say. But everything he says is 100% correct. Like I do like agree with it. And when I went into powerlifting, I went into it knowing that I did naturally already have quite a small waist. So I was willing to, if I did put on a little bit more inches on my waist, but I could put on much more muscle in my lower body, that was like a trade-off that I was willing to kind of accept at the time, because I was just really, really desperate to get bigger.
Yeah.
So that was what I chose to do, knowing that it's not the most ideal way for a typical bikini competitor to kind of train. But at the same time, I am a much, much, much smaller human in general than most other people. So, you know, I decided that that route would suit me. And it was just a good mental break as well. I think after coming second 3 times, I felt almost like a little bit defeated being so close as well. I think second is probably the worst, to like the worst placing to get, because you're just like, oh, so close yet so far. Or else I remember at the Arnold's when I came like ninth, like that really gave me so much fire and motivation. Like I felt like, oh yes, like I really have to do this. But then coming second, you just kind of, I don't know, just something about coming second was really, really frustrating to me,
Yeah.
especially like getting that 3 times in a row as well. So that was why I decided to go into powerlifting. But now I still feel like that has helped a lot with my current training. So now I totally don't do any heavy deadlifts at all. I only do like knee stiff legs. I love doing dumbbells. And I love doing a single leg Smith machine, like RDLs. That's my favorite exercise to do. I love doing single leg stuff. And I think it's because I am so strong from doing powerlifting in the past. So I used to squat like quite a lot of weight on the barbell. So now I transfer that strength over to doing like Bulgarians. I love doing Bulgarian split squats. Like everyone thinks I'm crazy, but that's my favorite exercise. Everyone's like, why do you love it so much? But I really, really, really love it. Like I love doing the Bulgarians. So I can do them like relatively heavy, especially to my body weight. And I can do them really slow and really controlled as well. And I won't be wobbling around. I just have like a lot of that base strength that I did build. And now I'm just using the strength that I did build in powerlifting to do the more kind of like time and attention, mind muscle connection kind of stuff that we do with Troy. And I haven't touched like a barbell for like a long time. Like I don't do barbell squats and stuff anymore. I don't miss it either because it was really, really tough.
Yeah.
And it was very kind of stressful on my central nervous system as well. So I feel like I was doing much less in terms of like sets and stuff like that when I was doing powerlifting. You know, sometimes, you know, when it was like a heavy day, you just do like 2-3 reps, you know.
Yeah.
But you still feel so just like exhausted by the end of it. And I think it's just the your CNS being really, really taxed out by doing something so heavy. So I feel like I enjoy my training sessions more now. Like I love going in, getting a pump and really like feeling the muscle that I want to target. That feels really good. So I definitely prefer the way I'm training now, but I definitely don't regret going through the powerlifting phase as well. I think that was also really fun.
Yeah, that's it. Like it just shows you your evolution of training over time, which is awesome to see. And you know, some people might be doing a bit of both, but like plan on competing, and maybe they need to focus on one or the other. If they want to really love powerlifting, focus there, or focus on bodybuilding. And it's good just to hear somebody who's done both talk about what you thought it brought to your physique versus nice. That's awesome. One thing, Nicole, since you're a pro and you're on here, like a lot of people ask me, especially inquiries about comp prep and that, they're like, right, so how much is this all going to cost, right? And for the guys, it's pretty cheap, right? Guys just have to pretty much pay coaching, supplements, posing trunks, and tan. Like there's not much else really with that. But girls, you've got hair, nails, bikini, which is a huge cost. You've got coaching, you've got all the other stuff on top of that. can we run through like sort of how much it might cost somebody like in that sort of prep phase, like so
Oh
people are
yeah, I
kind
think
of
that'll be fun.
aware of like where these, because you might know some things, right, that I might not even think of, like actually you don't think about this thing that costs actually quite a bit or whatever. So let's talk about that. That could be a good little segment here.
All right, so for amateurs or for pros?
Let's go amateurs for now, and
Okay.
then we can talk about the
Yeah.
difference between the pros
Yeah.
after that then.
Yeah, so the main difference between amateurs and pros, because the amateurs will have to pay generally like a federation fee and then a contest fee as well, and then multiple fees for multiple divisions. Whereas the pros, we don't pay to compete, we just pay for our pro card. So you can like enter multiple competitions and not have to pay, and there's only like one division, whereas amateurs can do like, you know, first timers, novice, blah blah blah. They can do like a lot of divisions, but that will cost them more money as well. So I think it can kind of add up. I think I can't remember the federation fees and stuff now. Do you know?
I think a lot of them are like 100 to 150 bucks per category, maybe. Would that be about right?
Yeah, let's just estimate about this. So that we have the $150 for per class, per division, let's just say that. And then you have your tan, which is about, I would like to say $150. However, at the Arnold's, I remember Pro Tan was, I think, $200 or $250. Okay. So I think it depends on whether you do a state show or national as well. So tan can range about there. Makeup about, again, $150 to $250. Also depends on whether you want hair. I don't know. I actually do my own hair, so I don't know. I haven't paid for hair because my hair is just straight, so I straighten it myself. And then some girls also, if they have short hair, they have to purchase hair extensions. Wow. So that can cost anywhere between $200 to like, I think someone told me they got quoted like $500.
Okay, yeah.
So that's a little bit crazy for fake hair. Yeah, so you got that for hair. And then for nails, anywhere between like $50 to $70. And then some people like to do skin treatments like facials and stuff before, so that will help the makeup go on like much nicer and whatnot. Again, that'll be like, say, $200. And this is all just beauty stuff. We haven't gotten into like actual training stuff. So, and then apart from that, so you've got nails and then jewelry. Yep. So jewelry, again, you can get like cheap ones from like Lovisa and stuff like that, but then it can get pretty expensive as well. So normally with jewelry, they have earrings, bracelets, and rings. And then bikini would cost anywhere between, I think, $300 to $500, maybe even $600 for a bikini. Some girls wear 2 different bikinis for state and national shows, which I think is really crazy. Yeah. I've never done that, but I know a lot of people do that. Shoes are about $150, and that is what you would need for like just a show day itself. Yeah. And then there's like coaching. So coaching, I would like to say average, I don't know, lots of coaches have different prices. So is it good to say about $100 a week is probably like a good estimate for coaching? Yeah, $100 a week for coaching. And then for girls, very important, posing coaching as well. Yeah. So that can range from like $80 to like $150 for like one posing session. You'll need to do multiple, so that would slowly add up. And then there's also like group posing sessions. So those are a little bit cheaper. You can go to a group posing class for $30. And then obviously you have to pay for your gym membership and your food. You know, fun fact, me and Jeremy's grocery bill is about $300 to $350 a week.
Wow, okay, that's big.
That's how much, like, for 2 bodybuilders, that's just groceries itself. Yeah. So, I mean, it can add up because protein costs money. And if you want to eat, like, you know, fresh vegetables and all that, like, it gets pretty expensive to just eat clean in general. And then supplements, I don't know what people would spend for supplements, like, because I spend a lot on supplements. I would say maybe $300 to $400 a month on supplements. Do you reckon?
You maybe protein costs what, 120, 150 bucks, and then it's if they're like pre's and fat burners and everything else on top of that. Yeah, at least a good 250, 300 minimum, maybe.
Yeah, supplements, because I think that's really important, like especially for females during like the comp prep as well, because a lot of them have to do with like more health side of things. So, you know, I feel like it's really important. Sometimes there's like I don't know, I don't want to like brand drop, but like there's a few that like help with female hormones, which I think are really important, and then things that help with your thyroid as well, which gets messed around with during prep, and then the ones that help with cortisol as well. So all these are just like your health side, and then you have obviously your protein and pre-workout and whatnot. So all those are like super important. And then you also have like your recovery stuff. So, you know, I think some people like to do like the infrared saunas and cryo, and then you also have like massage and physio and chiro. So all that costs a lot of money as well. So I think that's what you need to spend money on with regards to your body leading up to prep. And
as well.
Like
covered a lot of stuff there. Like I thought that I hadn't thought about, like jewelry and different things. Like it just adds up, right?
Yeah, so it is a lot of money. So people have to like really consider that. I think sometimes people try to like cut corners by like maybe buying like a secondhand bikini and stuff like that. So there's some things that are like negotiable and some that I'm not. I think the worst thing that people try to cut corners with is coaching and posing. So there's a few people who think they can coach themselves.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I did coach myself, but that was not my first show. So I had a coach before, and then I coached myself for like the Singapore, the Vietnam, and the Arnold's where I won my pro card. So those 3 shows I coached myself, but only after having a coach prior. So
so you kind of knew what to do prior to that, where some people coming in might not know what to do, and they don't know the steps. It's like they can't put all the pieces together, right?
Yeah, definitely. So definitely don't skim on getting a coach, and definitely don't skim on getting a posing coach as well. Because a lot of people think posing is just like really easy. You know, they just try to watch someone else's video and then like try to copy them, but it's just nothing compared to someone who knows what they're doing to really pick out what they're doing really weird. Even small things like I had a client, I'm not going to name her, but she used to walk like this, like. And then I was trying to figure out why it was weird. And then I put it down to when you're turning your chest, you should turn your chin the other way. And she wasn't doing that. That's something so minor, made her look really, really awkward because her head and her body was moving in the same direction. Yeah. So things like that, people don't realize they're bad habits. They need someone else to tell them, hey, you're doing this weird. Otherwise they just won't realize that, you know, they're doing weird teacup hands or clenching their fist, or girls do a lot of very weird things that they don't realize. So they really need to get someone to who's just really anal about the detail.
And that's a good segue into the next thing. I was going to ask you about your own coaching. So like, how long have you been in the industry as a coach now? We've talked about the competing side for all those years. How long have you been actually actively coaching clients now, Nicole?
So I started with just doing PT. So I've been a PT for a total of 4 years now, and then an online coach for probably about a bit more than 3, just over 3 years. And then for comp prep, just over 2 years.
Okay.
So I kind of slowly progressed into the comp prep zone. That's why I wanted to coach myself, just to kind of like try it out first. I had 2 conditions before taking on comp prep clients. So firstly, I needed to make sure that I wasn't an amateur, because I just felt if I were to compete in the same show as my client, I never wanted to be in that position where I would have to compete against a client or take someone on knowing that I may compete against them, because I'm just very, very, very competitive. So I think I needed to kind of distance myself and make sure my competitive my competition life was like my competition life, and then my comp prep coach life was separate. So I needed to make sure that I turned pro first before coaching, doing comp prep. And I needed to make sure that I successfully coached myself a few times and trialed different things on myself, like peaked myself, do this, do that, made sure I came in condition every single time before also I had the confidence of, all right, now I'm going to take someone through comp prep coaching. And my first comp prep client was actually a friend as well. So that made it a little bit easier. And it was a guy as well, so it made it easier. So it was like one of my guy friends. So that went well. So that helped build my confidence from there.
Nice. And so what sort of shows do you prep people for normally? Like, is it more IFBB or ICN stuff or IMBA?
I try to make everyone aim for IFBB eventually. Like I'd like them to have that idea in their head. But I'm totally okay if they wanted to do ICN and INBA first to kind of like see if they like it before kind of like moving on to IFBB. Some of them still continue to stay in the INBA and ICN because they like it. Yep. I'm totally fine with that as well. I also did prep someone for the WBFF, but then that show got postponed as well. So she never made it to the stage, but I was really excited for that actually.
Yeah, okay. So if anyone's listening, guys, Nicole is looking somebody to prep, reach out there. If she wants to challenge again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how do you operate? Like, as we talked before, like some of it's face-to-face, some of it's online. What's the best way for people to work with you? How do you prefer it at the moment?
I'm doing mainly online at the moment, and I think I'm kind of planning for like when everything opens and like my pro career as well. So if I can get most people online, then if I had to go to US for like a month or anything, I could still continue to work and coach from the US. All I need to do is bring my laptop with me. I still do my face-to-face, and I love doing face-to-face because that's where I kind of like came from. Yep. But at the same time, I'm trying to obviously move more towards online, and I want to save my face-to-face spots for my online clients who need to see me from time to time so that I can, look at their form and stuff like that. So a lot of things I can still pick up much better through seeing someone in person by eye compared to like, because I get people to film videos and you can see through videos, but sometimes they don't film from the best angles. And sometimes it's just, you can't see things that you can kind of see in real life.
Yeah.
So I still do really, really like the face-to-face, but I do see myself going more online going forward.
Okay, cool. And you obviously do posing coaching as well up there, right?
Yes. So I do mainly face-to-face for posing, as that's what I love to do, face-to-face. And I do a few like FaceTime sessions, but I still feel more confident in doing posing face-to-face than FaceTime.
Yeah, because posing is one of those things that, if you can get your hands on them and say, no, put your here or pop your glutes this way or whatever, it's a bit easier to just actually manipulate their body, right? Rather than, trying to tell them over the computer screen, no, do this, do that,
Yeah, definitely. Especially with like the phone screens being so small. And if I wanted to show them something and all that, it's not as easy. Whereas in person, you can easily spot things and you can kind of get someone's vibe in person as well, which I think is really important for posing, because sometimes I tell them it's the aura that you give out when you step on stage. It's not exactly like the technicalities of where you place your feet and like what you do, but it's the feeling people get when they see you step on stage. You need to kind of like wow them. Like you need to have that extra something. Like it has to be like from the inside out, so these kind of things I can do much better in person, because you can kind of sense like if someone's nervous or whatever, you can kind of feel that in person much better.
Yeah, cool. And then we've spoken about your comp, like the plans, but what about business? Like, because that's something that I buzz off, is talking to people about their business plans. So what's the goal with, your coaching business? Have you got a set number of clients that you will still take on, or how many people are you looking to grow to build a team? Or like, for example, if 10 people on here wanted to get in touch with you, could you take all 10 on, or have you got a limited spots? What's going on with you?
I do have limited spots. I have more spots for lifestyle. So for me, the limited spots comes with the comp prep side of things. So I like to keep my comp prep team like really, really small. So this season I only had 4 competitors, and only 2 were in Perth. One was in New Zealand and one was in Victoria. Okay. So when they were competing, I was just like on my phone and on my laptop with them the whole day. So it was still kind of like I was taking care of one person. And then here, obviously, I just had the 2 girls, which even then I found a little bit crazy having to go, because one was doing bikini, one was doing fitness. So I had to kind of make sure, like, because one would be pumping up while the other, and then I had to run to the front and like watch them and then run backstage again. It's pretty crazy, because I like to be really, really hands-on with these things. So for that reason, I like to keep my comp prep team like really small. But when it comes to lifestyle, I'm more than happy to take on, I guess, as many as I can handle. So I wouldn't take on too many people at a set amount of time. So I don't want too many people coming on at the same time, because I like to get to know each person individually and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes I might say I'm full till the end of this month, and then next month I'd be happy to open it up again. So I don't have a set number limit, but I think it just depends on like the time itself. So
yeah, cool. So basically, guys, if you're interested in Nicole, get in really quick because it's limited, and if you're in her lifestyle, it's also limited, but she'll eventually get round to you. So if anyone follows Nicole and likes the results she's pumping out, or just likes her as a person, hit her up, because from what I see, you're a great coach. You've obviously got the background for it. So it's it's awesome. So let's let everyone know, if they don't follow Nicole Tan, how do they find you, and how do they get in touch? Email or DMs? How do you normally take your inquiries through?
So you can find me on Instagram at the Nicole Tan. I also have a YouTube channel. You can just search Nicole Tan IFBB Pro. So I put out a lot of content on there. With regards to getting in contact, you can DM me on Instagram, or you can email me as well. I have my email on my Instagram bio. So yeah, either email or DM is fine.
Awesome, mate. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on today. I like very short notice. It's like two days later after talking, like we're on here. I think this is going to be out in about 2 weeks. So just at either right at the end of the month or start of June. So looking forward to this one going out and seeing how people react to it. But mate, thank you for your time today. I really appreciate it, and hope everyone who like this, tag the both of us. If they don't follow you, please go and follow Nicole and let us know what you think of the episode.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, mate. Speak soon. Thanks for joining me on today's episode of The O Show. If you know somebody who needs to hear this episode today, please share this with them via message or on social media. Don't forget to also take a screenshot and share it on your story and tag me at Oren McCarry, so we can continue to grow the podcast and help more people change their lives with the advice given here. Also, keep the 5-star reviews coming over on iTunes, as that helps people who normally wouldn't listen to the show find it and get the O Show in their ears and drive the podcast forward to help more people around the world with the advice here. Have a great day, and I will speak to you soon.